Today I got a message from my good friend Rob, and he told me that my former dean of students had said hello to me, and it was funny because he had just crossed my mind a few weeks ago as I was reflecting back on my time in college and university. I went to a school called Wabash College in Indiana, and had a really first tough time in college, honestly. Growing up, we moved around a lot. I went to 12 schools in 12 years. And when I got to college, I didn't really know how to even imagine being someplace for 4 years. And a lot of I had some really tough experiences dealing with identity, some stuff with my fraternity. I think it's just, it was a rough time. And I had my first kind of psychological or mental break. Started having panic attacks and ended up getting really, really sad and depressed and didn't really want to live any longer. And and so I, knew I wanted to change my experience, and so I had the capacity at a great career service office, and I was able to get a job out in Colorado at a ski resort as a lifeguard, and went off for a semester and kind of took care of myself, began working out and eating better and healing things that I just couldn't do with the intensity of school. And I went back to college again and I did really well that next semester. And then I learned about entrepreneurship. A guy named Corey Levy came and spoke at our school, a guy named Jason Bridges too from Nantucket. And they inspired me to want to go out and do my own thing. And so I started my first company and I started really focusing on that really intensely. So I left school again and was working full time you're working full time to pay for our developers to get the work done to build our project and it was helping high school students get into college based on being more than a test score. So it's about 2011 2012. So it was kind of LinkedIn for college admissions. At the time, it was a pretty innovative concept and idea, and we were working to build it. We called it Synopsis, and we ended up failing. Our developer was actually kind of stealing our money and wasn't really building the site the way he said he would. So we were kind of building up customer base and working with different like colleges and universities and kind of getting a buzz going, but we couldn't deliver a product, and that was pretty crushing. Um, but throughout that whole process, actually, it was super generative. I went back to school again, and the whole time I was working with my career service office, we had a great director named Scott Crawford and assistant director named James Jeffries, and ended up being Cassie Hagan in time, and I got really involved in building up a culture of startups and entrepreneurship. We helped to give students access to seed funding. We started the first co-working space in our university. We really revamped the entrepreneurial summit we had at our school. It grew it like probably twofold and brought in vendors and brought in the multi pathway speaker experiences, and it was just a beautiful thing. Like I found that I loved startups and I loved entrepreneurship and I loved the experience of helping people find their pathways and all while doing the same on my own. Um, and Yeah, I struggle still with school. It's just formal university education, and I ended up leaving again. I got diagnosed with an illness, and it really was hard to understand how I could go forward in my current context. This kind of all male school in Indiana, my fraternity life. I just couldn't really see myself any longer, and so I decided I wanted something different, and actually got a job at a company called Handshake. They were just starting off up in Michigan, and went up there and spent some time working with them and had a whole experience beyond that, where I left working with them and joined a monastery as a part of my own healing and spiritual development process to really figure out who I was and what mattered and what it meant to still be a part of a society with all the kind of systemic challenges I was facing. This is when I was much younger, right? This is probably over 10 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago. But it was a real journey, you know, of choosing a different pathway, but having to really figure out all that supported by so many different people, and yet really on my own. Um, um, and I think one of my deepest whys for Samara Sanctuary Studios and this living laboratory is because I don't think people should have to take these journeys alone. I'm a non-linear experiential learner. I'm definitely neurodiverse, if not somewhere like, twice exceptional. I move between identities, I move between labels and concepts and worlds. I live at the edges of so many things, and yet I'm like constantly anchoring into finding my center. And I think one of the greatest gifts I have to give to the world is the capacity to hold space for others as they go through their own unique transformations and do so in a way that is compassionate and nurturing and yet deeply creative. And I'm not an expert or I don't have like degrees, in things, but I have so much lived experience. And I and I found my way that I can genuinely be of service in the world because I don't need all those things to be able to offer my gifts, to be able to find ways to be in right relationship and to be in service to something larger than myself. And at 33, I'm finally at a place where I feel confident enough and I feel like I have the momentum, the biological, psychological, emotional stability to really build a venture that not only sustains me, but also sustains a larger system. And and I'm just grateful to be here and to be able to say that today. Like this work matters, this organization matters because we are um, reimagining what it means to work and to do in the world. And the people that we're attracting right now are imagining and reimagining these same things too. They're deeply service oriented. They're living at the frontiers as creatives. They've broken out of most institutional molds, and we're kind of coming together to find and pave a way forward together. And it's just a beautiful thing. And this is the work I get to do every day. And while I'm like, currently it doesn't sustain me financially, I'm constantly working. This is my growing edge at being able to take all this lessons, all this learning, all this development, all this experience and find more and more ways to take all that invisible value and to make it visible so that I can sustain this purposeful mission driven work in the world and do so in a way that allows others to do the same thing, to take all that they are and allow that to be enough to be able to survive in ways that are aligned to the challenges or tasks at hand that they are uniquely here and able to solve individually and that we can solve together collectively. It's tough times in the world. And from what I understand, it's just going to get more challenging. Um, and so learning how to be who you are now, to love that thing deeply, to allow others the same grace to be who they are in their process too, and for us as humanity to learn how to organize and accomplish the things we need to accomplish to minimize the suffering that we and the rest of the earth feel, but also have the chance to be able to pave or create or generate a new way for us to live on the earth together. Like that sounds utopian or it sounds ambition, but it's just as much as a possibility as anything else. And so this work matters. Um, because at some level, I really do believe that um, we still have the capacity and possibility to change the world. We can't stop some things that just have momentum. We probably can't even stop a system collapse, but we do have the ability to ease the suffering and to create more satisfaction or joy or bring more love into the world, no matter what is arising and going on. And we don't need to just do that by stepping out of the world. We can actually step more fully into it with our gifts, our talents, and our capacities and offer those in service to something greater than ourselves without having to sacrifice or lose ourselves along the way. Self love and collective resonance can harmonically organize prosperous work. And Samara Sanctuary Studios is exploring and developing a way.